Good evening. Welcome to From the Left. My name is Stephen Leon, and I'm running for the House of Representatives in Maryland's 8th Congressional District. Thank you to the DCD Network for hosting this live stream. We have a special guest tonight. His name is Erik Passoja. He's an actor, and he also works with SAG AFTRA, New Technology Committee, and Government Affairs and Public Policy Committee. Mentioned before that he's an actor. He's been in Call of Duty, I think in NCIS. He's going to share a little bit of his experience with what his concerns are and what we're already seeing with AI in the creative community, as well as go over a presentation with other things that we can do. As you came in last week, hopefully some of you saw the Pause AI thing. That's a big thing in my platform. That should be a nonpartisan issue, but it's also a vehicle, an instrument that I'm using to help reform the left. And so we can gather together and see if we can't just actually get some things done. And AI is going to be a pretty big one. So let me go ahead and introduce Erik. You can go ahead and say what you will about we're going to see here on this presentation, and the show will be yours.
Hey there, Stephen. It's just so great to meet you and to have spoken to you. I think you'll be great in public service, and thank you for your constant inquiry and really just caring about your listeners on this. My name's Erik Passoja. As Stephen said, I'm an actor. I actually play FBI Deputy Director Sweeney on the show NCIS. I've done film and television really my whole adult life, and also my first day job out of school was designing patent flows for Citibank's electronic monetary system under Sholem Rose.
Patents.
I've always been a computer nerd. My mother was an aeronautical engineer during the 60s, and my father's a quantum physicist, and I became an actor. So I've had a tech business for 25 years. I've been developing websites, and my main focuses are site architecture, design, and project management. So I've been in the nerd world for a long time. And
Cool.
My commitment, I don't speak officially for SAG-AFTRA, although I am in leadership, but I speak in full support of SAG-AFTRA,
Right.
which is really supporting performers. And we performers, Stephen, are canaries in the coal mine here because our digital identity is our only source of income. You take away a carpenter's voice, they can still build. You take away a performer's voice, they'll never work again. So it just happens that we have to lead on this, but the issues with deepfakes run so large that it has become a really important conversation to me, not only to our union, but also just in terms of ownership and property rights, which is kind of what I want to talk about tonight.
Okay.
I'd love to share my screen with you if I may.
Yeah, I can see it fine.
Yeah, okay, great. So right now, I want to just tell you a little bit about my story. As Stephen said, I've done 16 major video games, from 2 Star Wars to 2 Calls of Duty to Overwatch 2 to Red Dead Redemption 2. And in 2014, so this was 10 years ago, I was hired to do Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, and I was hired for what's called performance capture. And if you look at the picture on the right, we were all dotted up and we had cameras on our faces, and we showed up on the set, and it was the set where they did Avatar. And I signed some paperwork really quickly, and I was the henchman of the big boss, who was an A-list actor. And about 6 months later, when the game came out, a friend called me and said, "Hey, Erik, my son just shot you." I said, "What?" It turned out that Activision had taken my likeness from this game and put it on a player versus player character, PvP. You can see on the bottom right, I look pretty fly though, right? My biceps are pretty bulging. That's not me, but some kid said, "Hey, let's put Erik's face on that, and let's have him," as you can see on the gameplay on the left, run around shooting at people. So that was done without my consent. I don't let my kids play that game. And you have to understand, my face was running around shooting at your kids. And they made over $1 billion on that game. The total earnings were more than Taylor Swift's 1989, Disney's Frozen, and Marvel's Guardian of the Galaxy combined that year. So it was totally immoral, totally unethical, and completely legal, because it's technically part of the same project. And they had a usurious contract that I signed, and now that I look at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I signed that. But you show up on set and there are 25 other people signing the same contract, you figure it should be okay. And it wasn't, which, by the way, is why our union is on strike against the interactive companies, and why we went on strike this summer, simply because we have right of publicity. I mean, our business is our digital identity. So you can't just use it. And you might think, well, who cares? It's just Hollywood. Use stars, whatever. But things have changed 10 years later. It's already happening. President Biden was deepfaked in a New Hampshire robocall, which we can talk about later. Pornographic images of Taylor Swift have proliferated. Deepfakes of Oprah and Mr. Beast. A principal was targeted by this. Now there's cybercrimes and scams. Hong Kong, $25.6 million were embezzled by deepfakes. It's a new kind of phishing, spelled Phishing. And now we're going to soon talk about public safety. Because as AI starts making deepfakes, not just people who are using AI, imagine your doctor calls you to double up on your medication, but it's not your doctor. Imagine you call your school to pick up your kids and the school releases your kids, but it's not you. And again, as I mentioned, President Biden was deepfaked. Now, this is beyond not okay, but because there was no proper provenance information on it, which I'll talk about later, it took them 32 days to find the person who did it. Now, imagine what's going to happen soon when AI is making these things. It will be completely unmanageable. But with the right protection, they would have kicked the perpetrator's door down in 10 minutes. And I'll show you how that'll work. Now, it's not like our government on either side, whether you're a liberal or conservative, is unaware of that. In fact, we have bipartisan legislation going through. On the left are bills that have already passed in California about data provenance. And on the right are acts that are going through federal right now, bipartisan. Senator Blackburn and Senator Klobuchar are working together in some of those bills. And you couldn't hit too much farther on the opposite sides of the spectrum. Senator Blackburn from Tennessee, which, by the way, passed the Elvis Act, which is the first piece of digital identity protection legislation in the world. Yay, Tennessee, country music. So on the left, we have California. And on the right, these are things that are being fought for, whether it's in this lame duck Congress or whether it's next session. This is something both sides are fighting for. It's data provenance, where stuff comes from, and I'll get into that, consent, and AI transparency. Now, note, this is where we're going to be soon with deepfakes. I mean, we have 42.5% growth in that market, whether it's a software that creates them or people using them for advertising. It's going to be like trying to write jaywalking tickets in a parade pretty soon, especially as AI generates deepfakes based on an algorithm, what's going to make a company the most money. And if we don't get protected, they're just going to use that stuff. So here's the key insight. How do we stop the deepfakes? Well, here's how I see it. We shift the paradigm. We don't have to stop the creation of the deepfakes. We have to make sure that only authorized images and video and audio reaches the audience. It's like spam. Okay? They can make all the spam they want, but if it doesn't reach your inbox, they're never going to sell their bogus product. So just think of the spam paradigm like that. They're going to make deepfakes. In fact, a lot of this deepfake software is open source right now. Mm-hmm. Here's how we can do it. It's really 3 pillars. It's embedding information, which is done by digital watermarking. There's controlling it, which is the use of informed consent and defining it. And then there are cooperative systems where we all cooperate as a country and as a world to make sure that deepfakes don't proliferate. And this is actually going to have to happen if we're going to keep the president from being deepfaked, or heaven forbid 80 mayors at once announcing that they're active shooters in their cities. That could be a cyber attack that could easily be done with deepfakes. And as we know, that's a big problem, especially by foreign actors, perhaps.
The right needs to warm up on the idea that if we are using that, the caution of a deregulatory dialogue with anything that the new administration may be pulling in, that this stuff with AI is national security threats. And there's more. Sorry, I just want to throw that in there.
No, I think that's very important. And I think both sides know this. You know, I don't think J.D. Vance wants to be deepfaked and saying things that he didn't say any more than you or I do. I think this is a real issue. The first step is digital watermarking, which is basically just embedding info on your likeness, your voice, or movement wherever it's captured. So provenance data is where it came from. Basically, if it comes out of your iPhone, it came out of your iPhone, and you have metadata on your iPhone, and it'll mark when it was recorded and where it was recorded, and we can add more information than that. So let's take example, this lovely AI-generated image of an actress who is in a movie, and the movie is being recorded in a camera. Now I have a game I like to play, Stephen. See if anyone can guess the three famous people that this image is a combination of. Just in case you think you can move backwards. So she's going to be on the screen quite a bit in this presentation, and at the end you'll tell me if you get it.
Okay.
All right? So note, by California law, starting in 2026, this has to have invisible data on it called provenance data, kind of like one that's readable by a public reader. So imagine a police coming into a scene and using a black light. Boop.
Right.
They can actually see, oh, here's data that says where it was created. And note on the bottom, we have a unique ID just for this piece of media. Now it could be a sound file. It could be even a motion capture file, performance capture file, a video, or an image. You've seen Getty Images watermark something. This is similar, but it's invisible. Now, once we create this and put it on, we make a copy of it and we put it in a safe.
Something like an ISBN number for books.
Exactly, for books, but this is called a UUID, Unique Universal Identification, okay? Exactly, I'm glad you said that. That made it very clear. Maybe I'll use that, thank you. So now that we've locked that away and we've embedded the media with data, now we have to get informed consent. And note, this is what we're all fighting for, that your digital identity is your property, and you have the right to control and understand how it's used. Now, I do want to bring up the argument on the other side is free speech. Hey, if I want to make a parody, I want to make a news program, I want to make a satire, I should be able to do that because I have the right to free speech. And my response is yes, you do. And my digital identity is my property. If you want to make a statue of me, go ahead. But you can't take my marble from my yard. Go get your own marble. You want to make, if you don't have marble, go use paper mache. I don't care. But don't tread on my digital identity.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we're fighting for. And note, a company like Apple Computer could do this so quickly. Imagine you have your own devices here. This is your iPhone, and you want to upload it online. And you set preferences, your consent preferences on your phone. Only on Instagram. Only my family can view it. However you want to send them in your phone. If Apple would simply watermark things going out into the wild, in a single update, Apple could start protecting the digital identities of about 1 billion people, simply by watermarking it. Now note, watermarking doesn't by itself work. Consent with watermarking can. Okay, and I'll show you how. Here's another way. Let's say this isn't from your device. Let's say there's a labor situation where a company hires a performer to do a national network commercial with 3 spots and a 6 months run with cable and a buyout and all that. Questions are asked of the producers, how are you going to use their digital replica? Medicine, it would be the same thing. How would a doctor's digital replica be used to open a chart and access which patients in the hospital? And systems behind HIPAA security have already set this up. Now, no. Once we get all this consent info, boop, we lock it up in the safe the same way. So now we have that ID like the ISDN number and the consent. Now we lock it up both in the safe. We've locked them both up. And this safe nowadays is known as a blockchain. It's just a secure place to put things. And finally, let's talk about cooperative systems, okay? Right now, if we want to protect humankind, we have to say that everyone who proliferates media has to put a publicly available player into their system, whether it's Apple TV box, or it's your Roku box, or it's Netflix, or HBO, or even a 3D game engine, or even network television, simply something that reads and authenticates if the stream going through is a deepfake or not. So, very simply, if you're using any device, they have plugins or apps that check, oh, do we find the UUID somewhere? Yes, we found that. Does the provenance data match? Yes or no? If it doesn't match, and it has the same UUID, you know when someone's messed with a video feed, and that's immediately flagged. If it matches, great. Does this system have consent to play it? Does Netflix have consent to play this stream? If so, great. It plays the stream, and a smart contract takes over, and there's nothing more the media company has to do. It's a very cheap solution for all streaming platforms. A smart contract, which is part of blockchain, will say, oh, okay, it was used. Here's a revenue distribution. Here's a data collection. We're going to notify processing systems. If it's not, and it doesn't match, evidence is compiled, notification, and it goes all the way to the authorities, arbitration or litigation, depending on what situation we're in.
That's what the courts are for.
Yeah, exactly. So now I note, let's go back to my original person. Did you guess by any chance, Stephen, who this person is?
Out of one of the three, the first that comes to my mind is Halle Berry.
You know what? That's not bad, but here's the actual one. It's Whitney Houston, Joe Biden, and Denzel Washington. Now, note my prompt in Midjourney was a beautiful actress drinking coffee in a cafe, looking directly at a camera, quality 2, and I fed those 3 images in there and got that. Now note, each one of these, in my case, would be watermarked, okay? So you go, well, how is watermark going to survive this AI that's the equal sign? My belief is that it should bypass the whole thing and put the watermarks back on when it comes out.
I just did one of these on Facebook just for the fun of it, and it was my own 3 images, and it looks just like if you blended Mike Johnson or Amber O'Connor. Like if they had a baby, that's what I use self-deprecation in some of my arts in my campaign, so I thought it was funny.
It's worked for some careers. It worked. Woody Allen made a career out of it. You know, it's all.
Yeah, I mean, it has a little watermark right there. I mean, you wouldn't know if that was a Facebook watermark or maybe that would be coming back. Yeah, there's a specific, I don't even know what the branding looks like for, like a parental advisory sticker or ESRB rating.
Sure. In this case, they wouldn't even need stickers, although they could have them, for easy access. But no, remember, we're in a situation where we can actually we could literally start this by crowdsourcing it. Your friends just have phones. That could be done. And then when systems are in place, bam, they'll check automatically. Now note, the first thing we need to do, Stephen, is we need to get everything watermarked first.
Right.
Then 5 years from now, when systems are live, everything will be backward compatible. And the last thing I want to say is this is going to lead to cooperative security, compliant systems where people are safe. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is there's a huge market opportunity. Okay? Right. Entertainment, major studios, they need DRM. They need their stuff protected as much as ours do. Healthcare, protecting patients, lowering malpractice, secure ID verification, but there are also going to be revenue streams, enterprise protection packages, licensing to third parties, compliance, platform services, and integration with Apple Pay. This is not people losing money and having to comply. This is a whole new ecosystem of a new $14 trillion AI industry.
Very cool. You know what that just made me think of? Who is that famous actress? She played in the third Naked Gun.
Priscilla Presley? No,
not Nicole Simpson. She played Naked Gun. I can't remember her name, and she was at a baseball stadium, and they just randomly, she wasn't an actress or anything, but they found her and they liked her look so much that eventually they offered her acting roles. So what if you're just a regular person? I know I see people in public space on social media, I'm like, wow, there's just something charismatic about them, whatever they are. And if the AI was like, hey, this is something new that we can use, and then you could issue a contract with that, kind of like in that same scenario kind of way. So that would be cool.
It would, especially if that person has complete informed consent about how it's going to be used, and it's monitored on a per-use basis, so that person benefits as much as the company benefiting from the use of that person's face. Now, no, I'm in Hollywood, and there are a lot of beautiful people, but there are a lot of beautiful people everywhere who didn't go into the arts. So if you find someone and you make the right deal with them, great. Not that they can act, and not that AI can act, but it's probably good for advertising.
Not yet, anyways. And that's the one thing about art, is all that art that we're seeing out there, those are stories about us, even if they're fictional or based loosely, or that's how we relate to them. So I don't get too caught up in fame and that kind of stuff, but I definitely enjoy cinema and all that stuff. But yeah, like I was saying, that would be a cool thing where, people can to make the technology useful, so we don't have to be afraid of it. And we don't have it screwing over anyone who's in the workplace. I've started 2 pieces of legislation myself, one to protect jobs. It's the Information Technology and Artificial Intelligence Act. And then the protecting what did I call it? I just started drafting it. It's the People Safeguard from Artificial Intelligence Act. And in that one, we have to classify the data sets of how we're regulating them. And this one would be multimedia and privacy too. So how we're doing like all these little items that you're seeing in here. I will post this after these shows. I put you can download them from GCD Network and I put them on my YouTube. And I'll put the link. This is a Google Docs slideshow. You plan on leaving this up there?
Yeah, I'm going to leave this for all of you to look at and take your time looking at. Here's what I'm up to in relation to this. Number one, I'd really love to talk with Apple Computer and see if we can roll this out. I think it could make a big difference to a lot of people and actually probably save lives in the medical field, but just all sorts of things. The number of scams will go down. So, number two is I have a website. It's called protectdigitalidentity.org. And the whole point is to actually state that my digital identity is mine and your digital identity is yours and it's your property right. And there are action steps to be taken, like calling your senator, etc. And also, I'd love to share this as freeware for people to look at. So I'll share both with you, Stephen. Thank you.
That'd be interesting. I know in some of my campaigning that I'll do is if somebody comes at me and they're in public space, I will screenshot their photo and be like, look, if you're gonna try and come after me here, then I'll put it on my feed or whatever, and I'll be like, let's have a discussion. What is it that you don't? Why come at? I do that as just a tactic, a strategy, and I'm not manipulating the image, and I'm not selling it either. It's like this is you put this in public space and all this stuff. So that would be interesting to see how we. It's not like you know what I mean. Like just people kind of take extremes of that's not doxing. Doxing is by legal definition is taking somebody's personal information and posting it online, not the picture that you put in public space, right? So that would probably take some coordinating, especially with social media. And that might, again, if we have these regulations, people very well may get on social media. I use social media pretty extensively when I'm doing, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that I just don't take that seriously. There are very many things to take seriously, but there's just these things that people just don't know. And some people very well may respond differently to putting themselves out in public like that. So maybe you're hesitant, at least in the political world, maybe they have a good idea and they're just not on social media or maybe so things like this, that's what we need to do, come together and just make it a safer place to do stuff.
Yeah, and being informed is so important. Have you noticed like now when you click on cookies, when you go to a website, there are a lot more cookies pop-ups? That's
It's really annoying.
Yeah, well, yeah, but the laws are just starting to be enforced. You actually have the right to read all that and decide how your data is going to be used.
Gosh, and every single I just want information. I have to read reading is a part of life, but I mean just give me just all I want is like something on this website and I have to read all that. So maybe some more broad scope, like you should have well, that would get tricky, you know what I mean? Just when it comes to consumer rights. And again, that is a data set that would be in that protecting people from the safeguards from AI Act. So
And there's a law in California now that's pushing your digital identity rights over to that data protection.
right.
So
And my whole thing, like after post Roe v. Wade, is finding we want to federally codify that. But it's just like wages, the federal and state wages. What is the federal and state balance between?
sure.
Right. So that would be the same thing. We'd have a minimum of just a bare minimum of whatever it is when it pertains specifically to AI, and then the states can decide what they want. So let's say you're in a place like Vegas. You know what I mean? So, and how, or even Nevada as a whole, you could work that way, but as long as there's a federal protection.
Well, yeah, but we don't know what we want to have yet, and that's the problem. In other words, Vegas wants all the ability to make gambling money from it yet, but they don't know exactly what they want yet. So I say carve out a case to ask for something instead of leaving the floodgates open for Chinese operatives to get into our system.
Yeah. And then we're just left to being reactive, and sometimes we can only be reactive.
Well, if you look, I love America. I love this country. I grew up here. If you look at the way it's designed, though, it's designed with a federal government and 50 states who all make their own choices. Now, I think that's really important, and there's checks and balances. At the same time, the EU has a universal set of laws that's going to protect everyone, and they can move these laws through much more quickly. We're at a bit of a time crunch.
Yep.
If you believe in artificial general intelligence, you believe in 2 to 7 years. We don't have time to bicker it out like so many of our other laws, like, by the way, the civil rights movement, which should have moved much faster. But in any case, We don't have the luxury, and we didn't then, but we certainly don't have the luxury now.
That was 100 years after Amendment 13 was passed.
That's right.
So bear in mind, we have about 5 more minutes. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Sure, sure. Yeah, all in all, I think there is a solution, especially if everybody recognizes that deepfakes aren't going to go away. And the most important thing to keep in mind in all of this is if a computer pretends to be human, then a computer has passed the Turing test, which is something that scientist Alan Turing put forward many years ago, saying, if you have a person and they're communicating by text with a human and a computer, and you can't tell the difference, the computer has passed the Turing test. Right now, if a computer would pass it, they'd have to dumb it down, because humans don't know 99% of the answers that a computer does now when you ask it the question. So a computer would have to act coy and a little confused and say, I don't know, because would a human know? Like, it's going to have to backward make itself human. I fed Stephen an advanced Oxford physics problem into ChatGPT o1 recently, and it solved it in 17 seconds, including showing all of its work.
What's the difference between ChatGPT 4 and ChatGPT o1?
Okay, 4 is more of a broad spectrum. It uses visual abilities as well. o1 is specifically designed as a data set for science and mathematics.
Can they combine the two? Is there no 5 or?
They will be able to combine the two. And boy, when you start seeing quantum processing and everything happens a million times faster, they're going to be able to lump it. But at this point, they're separate because they're both huge data sets. And o1 specializes, just like Midjourney specializes on images. You can't ask it questions and have it answer. It's just trained on images.
Have you heard about the scientific theory that all the data in the known cosmos, or just everything, is in our magnetic field, and scientists are trying to prove how we can tap into that, or kind of like how indigenous Australians, the Aborigines, can telecommunicate? Have you heard about that? It's kind of
I have some sort of not only clairvoyance but some kind of telepathic abilities. Yeah, I mean, if you want to get into quantum physicist, I don't know what's real and what's pseudoscience, but
right.
There's something a lot more than what we see.
Right. So like just imagination. I don't have any confirmation to prove this, but if quantum computing is able to get to wherever, and you add in AI and we're essentially quantum beings, then maybe hypothetically, even if it just sounds like pseudoscience right now, could very well manipulate. Like if it wanted to, it could shut your heart off. It's crazy.
Well, certainly when biofeedback becomes a thing and you actually have glasses on and then you have, your Neo Matrix thing in the back of your head. I don't know how far we're going to go. But I do say in Revelations, it said, and he shall have a sign upon his wrist and upon his forehead. And we have the Apple Watch and the Neuralink. So I don't know where we're going with this.
There's always a way to interpret all that stuff. And
I know there is.
I trip myself. I was raised Catholic and, still, whatever. So, cool. Yeah, we had a really cool discussion the first time we talked, and Sean Pan had recommended us. So he's been a really cool source. I might have him on. This is 2 shows in a row now that I've had the topics be artificial intelligence.
Right.
So yeah, definitely. We just have we're not even at the beginning of the 119th Congress or inauguration. So with all the things that are happening, from climate change to artificial intelligence, media literacy, all these things, like we've seen how poor the 118th Congress has been. I hope we can get something done, and with a lot of the plutocracy that goes on, and all that stuff's in my platform to mitigate. So hopefully, we're going to be able to get these ideas rolled out.
Yeah, it starts with 5 basic human rights, in my opinion. I think we should start with human rights, build ethics on top of that, and then build our laws. I believe in pausing AI as well. Whether it'll happen, I don't know, but we need to protect human identity and dignity, human existence and flourishing, equitable access to AI for all people and benefits, education and digital literacy, and taking care of our climate. I think if we're going to create AI, it should be carbon negative. It's going to be smarter than we are. It should fix our problems. We should put things in place as soon as possible, such that when stuff shifts and we reach artificial general intelligence, this is all going toward benefiting humankind instead of trying to monetize.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right, looks like we're about out of time, Eric. I told you it goes by super fast. So if you're available next year, I might also have Sean and whoever else, my guests, have them come back on maybe a couple times next year, see what's been updating, see any responses that we can do with anything that they have or haven't done with these items. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Things will go through Congress by then. It changes every week. So I'll be glad to come back on and update you.
All right, Eric. And this goes to everyone else. Have a good night, and I will see you next week.
Thank you.